Hi everyone. This is going to be a walkthrough tutorial on recreating my Maiden album. We're going to walk through and recreate the album from cover to the pages. So I hope you'll follow along, and if you have any questions, please PM me, message me, or post on the Country Craft Creations, Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations Facebook page, and I will respond back. Okay, so the album is 8.5 by 6.5. So I've already cut my chipboard, and this is the chipboard that you can get at the Country Craft Creations. Tammy sells it in 11.5 by 8, 8.5 by 11, and 12 by 12. So I've already cut my chipboard down to 6.5 by 8.5. I did not cut my hinge yet because the way I make my books is I create my hinge first so I know what size to cut the chipboard. Then I will cut the hinge, and then we'll proceed to create the album base. So to start with, for my hinges, I cut, now the pages in the book are going to be 8 by 6. So I cut my paper, and this is, I'm using the Country Craft Creations artesian linen paper to recreate this. My album was made with the baby blue artesian cardstock, but because I lost the video when my camera or my laptop crashed, so I have to recreate. So I'm using the linen cardstock, artesian cardstock, which you can find in the store at Country Craft Creations. So my pages are 8 by 6, so I actually cut my cardstock for my hinges 7 7/8 by 12. Okay, and the way I do my hinges, I start and I score at 1 1/2. And then I score 1/2 inch all the way down. Okay, so I'm scoring at 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2, 9. You count how many I have. And then 9 1/2. So that's going to give me 5 hinges for my 5 pages. Okay. So again, I'll go over it again. 1 1/2. And then 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2, 9, and then 9 1/2. And I'm going to go ahead and move my scoreboard. So what that gives me is, I'm going to allow the 1/2 inch for the between each hinge. And then each hinge is going to be 1/2 inch. Okay? So using my score tape, and I'm going to use my 3/8 on this one. I'm going to flip it over so I can see. And what I do is, I'm going to skip the first 2 and put my score tape on the 3rd one. Skip the next 2 and add score tape. And I've got a glare, so I'm going to have to move it so I can see it there. Okay. Skip the next 2 and then add your score tape. Skip the next 2 and add your score tape. skip the next two and add your score tape. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 hinges. So to kind of make it easier, so I am putting score tape between my 2.5 and my 3-inch score lines. Alright, and then I skip 2, which is going to be 4, and then I'm going to go 4.5 and 5 is my score tape. So it's 5 every 2 score lines. I put score tape. All right. I'm going to garnish them. Let me get my scissors to make this a little bit easier. All right. So I'm going to score. This is 1, 2. So the second one I'm going to fold over. And that's going to make my first hinge. And then I'm going to fold it back this way and fold it this way. So you can see there's my first score line, there's my second score line. My third score line is now my hinge, and my fourth score line is down here, which is the bottom of the hinge. Alright, so that's going to continue on. So I'm going to pull this one off, and I'm going to fold it over, and I'm creating the second hinge. Fold this over, and then fold it back over this way. So there's my first 2 hinges. This way, when my hinges are done, I will be able to measure it and see exactly how wide my hinge for my cover needs to be. So I've got my 5 hinges. I got my 1/2 inch margin, which I'm going to fold the first score line over. And then I'm going to have another 1/2 inch here that I scored, and I'm going to fold that over. And there is my hinge. Alright, so now for my hinges and my cover, I always use my score tape. For my actual pages, I use my art glitter glue. I'm more comfortable using the score tape on my covers than I am and the art glitter glue for my pages. Now, this is the 1/2 inch score tape, and I'm using that just because I don't have to use as much. And I'm going to fill this in with the 1/3. Alright, so I want to fold this over, and I'm going to turn it around and do the other side. Again, lining right up to the score line. Now, you can use the score tape pages and with sheets that I love, and I will be using those for my album when I put the cover on. But just for my hinges, I don't use them. I just find that the tape works better for me. I'm just cutting off the excess here. Okay. Peel these off. Alright. And this is how you can do your hinge. And it's quick and easy. It's not complicated at all. Now, I did not line that up even, so I am over a little bit. So I am going to come in and cut that off. Sorry about that. I hit my mouse and it took it right off camera. So I'm going to move my mouse out of my way because I have a tendency sometimes of hitting it without realizing it. So there's my hinge. And I'm just kind of working them back and forth to make sure tape is adhered real good. And my hinges are flexible. So if I measure this actually is 3 inches. So it's 3 inches wide. Alright? By 7 3/8. Or 7 7/8, I'm sorry. So I want to cut my hinge chipboard, and I'm going to cut it just a little bit wider. So I'm going to cut it at 3 1/4. Put that away. And then we're going to go ahead and build our album. So we've got the 2 covers and then the hinge right there. And I'm going to grab my score sheets real quick. Sorry, I should have had those out and totally forgot. Alright, so here's my score tape sheets that I'll be using for my cover. And what we want to start with, I'm going to remove these first. And you want to get your cardstock. Now, the cardstock I've already cut down. My book is 8 1/2, so I've already cut my paper to 10 1/2. So the width is going to be 10 1/2, the length is going to be 12, and I have 2 of them. Alright, so then I use my 1 1/4 score tape to connect these 2, and I just add it right here on the edge, and right here on the edge. Would you believe I've already lost my score? Oh, there it is, my bone folder. Okay. And then just remove. The tape. And then I'm just going to line these 2 up. And I overlap it a little bit, just so I have good adherence. Not a whole lot, just enough, okay? So. Now, what I do, just because it works for me, and you can do this before you tape your pages together, but I do, so this is 10 1/2, so I score a 1 inch line at the bottom so I can line my chipboard pieces up and they're not crooked. Although I'm not saying this actually helps me all the time, because sometimes I do make it over the score line, but that 1 inch score helps me. I know some people use the ruler down here. I just can't do that. So, alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to put our score tape from our score sheets on the one side of our chipboard, and then we're going to go ahead and add our chipboard. So, our chipboard is 8.5 by 6. The score sheets come in 8.5 by 11. So I'm just going to measure it up to 6. And I'm going to need 2 of them. And then I'm going to use one of the other halves and do the 3.25. And by 8.5. Right there, perfect. Okay. So, if you have not used these tape sheets, oh my gosh, you don't know what you're missing. It's so much easier than having to put tape off the rolls on this. So, and see, you can see I'm already losing my bone folder all the way the whole time I'm doing this. So, all right. Now let's do this one. And I cut it at 6, and my book was 6.5. I don't know what I was thinking there. But that's alright, we can fix that. So I'll just take a 1/4 inch. Now had I cut it at 6.5, it would have fit perfectly, but I was talking and lost my thought. I obviously wasn't thinking, but it still is going to work. So I'm not using a whole roll of tape. I'm just going to use a little bit. Sure it's on there good. Okay, now starting with my hinge, I'm going to line it up in the middle of my seam right here. Using my score line, my 1 inch score line down here to guide you as a guide for me. And I'm just going to put it right on there. Now, using my 1/4 again, I'm going to add tape here right next to each side of it, which gives me my spacer between the 2 pieces of chipboard. And that helps prevent it from your cardstock from cracking or splitting on you. And that's a wonderful trick I learned from Tammy over at Scrapbook Country Craft Creations. If you've ever watched her videos, she will always explain to you why she does something, and I have learned so much from Tammy prior to becoming a design team member, and then after becoming a design team member, I continue to learn. I love it. Love it. Alright, so you just lay that one down. I'll do this one too. And then just right here, pull this one off. Okay. And I'm just lining it up next to that piece of tape and using my score line down here as a guide. Okay. There we go. Quick and easy. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. Now, I only need 1 inch on each side. And so what I do is I just stick it in my cutter, line the chipboard up at the 1 inch, and cut it off. There is our cover. Now, I take my 3/8 score tape and take it along the edge, try to match it up with my chipboard because I don't want to waste my tape. Even a little 1/2 inch adds up in my opinion, so I just kind of do it along. And I'm going to take my 1/4 score tape and add it onto the chipboard. Excuse me. Go back and make sure that I burnish my score tape down. Whoops, that one wasn't on there and I moved it, but that's alright. It's just the second way to catch the paper and hold the paper. So, okay, and then I'm going to come up and I'm going to fold that over even with this chipboard. Kind of give it a Now I'm going to miter my corners for my and using that fold line is what I go by. And are they straight and even? No. Whoops. I'm like ripping the paper there. I just don't cut all, I leave a space, probably 1/8 between the end of the chipboard and the paper. I don't cut it straight to the chipboard. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove all my score tape backing. The scraps here. I'm going to grab my art glitter glue and I'm going to add a fine line all, I guess if I turn it around I'd be able to see what I'm doing, huh? Just along the chipboard. And what that does is it helps softens the paper just a little bit. So when you bend it, go to fold it over, it really helps soften it and get you a smooth fold or crease. So just a very thin line on all 4 corners. And I'm going to start down here and I'm just going to start working it over. Take your bone folder and help square it up. Excuse me. A little tickle in my throat here. Okay, turn around. Do the same for the other side. And let me just take my bone folder and make it smooth. Go back and burnish it. So what my double tape does, this tape is going to grab the bottom or the edge, but this tape here actually grabs here to help hold it. So now I did not cut those real well, and you can see I've got, I don't know if you can see, I got a little tip here. So I'm just going to cut it off there. Got one here too. Alright, I'm going to finish up the other half. Look at this. Look at how quick this album has come together. Just kind of work it. Not a whole lot of pressure here. I'm just kind of working these in so that those line of tape that I had put on there between the two pieces of chipboard grabs my paper. So it's a smooth fold. And there you go. There's our cover. That's the base of our cover. Now to finish it. So what I do is, remember this is 8.5, and then it's 6 wide, or 8, the width, I'm sorry, is 8. So I'm going to cut my paper to 7 7/8, or 7 7/8. Okay, and what that does is it gives me enough that I can just, what did I just do? I just did not do that right. This is 8.5. Whoa, Jackie. So the album is 8.5, so I have to cut it at 8 5/8. No, 8 3/8. 8 3/8. Sorry, guys. See? We all make mistakes. And then when you're trying to do it in video, it's usually when you make the most mistakes. So that's going to fit right up there with a nice clean edge on both sides. Okay. So on this now, I do use my score tape. And how I do it is I'm going to use the 1/2 inch only because it grabs it a lot better. You can use whatever tape you want, but I like to do my covers, the inside of my covers, with the 1/2 inch as well. So all I'm doing is basically the outline of the paper. Okay. And then I'm going to take in the middle and just run a strip down here. I don't want to go this way. I don't want to go vertical. I want to go horizontal. And the reason for that is because of your tape right here. You want it to be able to grab the tape, work together, not against each other. So I do 3 strips down. I'm going to burnish it. And I'm going to pull this off. Now this is how I do mine. Everybody has their own little ways of doing it. Whatever works best for you is the way I recommend you doing it, but this is how it works best for me. So I take the 3 middle strips off, okay, and bring that up, and I'm going to line my paper. So I want to make sure that I'm not over on the top and over on the bottom, and then I lay it and I smooth it out. Then I go back and I just turn the corner over, pull this up like that. Yep, that isn't what it does, but it did it on me on that way, but there's always a way to work around it, so. This way, I feel I have more control over my tape and my paper, and the tape goes where I want it to go and not where it wants to go. So, alright, so then you just pull your tape, and before I pull the other one, I want to go ahead and, whoops, and pull this one out. Take that one out that way, pull it, and then I'm going to take this and smooth it out. And I did not trim the tape, so I have some tape here that I need to work. If your tape is over the side of your paper, you do want to trim it off, and I didn't do it on this one. But I'm able to work it under. And I'm going to have designer paper on there, so any blemishes it's going to hide. So I only have this much left now to use, and since I messed up and cut the first piece the wrong size, I'm going to go ahead and salvage what I can of it. So I'm going to cut that at 8 3/8. So it matches up. And then I'm going to cut it to take a little bit off. I just don't want it to go on that hinge, and it's going to keep going in. It is on that hinge, and I don't want it on the hinge. I don't want double paper on where the book folds up. And again, very gently, I'm just running my bone folder over that so the tape on the other side catches my paper, and the tape that I put on there going horizontal. So this is what I don't want double paper on. I don't want that. They'd be too bulky. So what I've done is I've cut it so it's going to match up here. And it's going to have a seam here, but my pattern paper will hide it. So again, I'm going to use my 1/2 inch score tape. I'm going to tape my edges. And then instead of going up and down, I want to go horizontal. So I'm going to go back this way. And I'm just going to use 3 strips. And as you can see, these are not straight, right? I just put them on there. But I have found, you can put more, but I found 3 strips holds it perfectly. I've not had a problem with any of my albums where it pulled up from the chipboard. So, and again, I'm just removing the 3 middle ones so I can line this up where I want it without having all this tape grab and hold where I don't want it. And then again, I'm just going to go in and start my score tape. Turn it around. pull that out, pull that out, burnish down, pull that out, burnish down, there, and my album is covered. So I have the inside and I have the outside finished. Now we're going to add the hinge, but before I add the hinge, I want to add my score tape. And I want to add my score tape to the back too. So I'm going to use my sheet on this one. So just kind of making a little mark there so I know where to cut it. And then I want to cut it 3 1/4. Now, I save all these little pieces. You never know when you need them, so I save everything. So let's go ahead and add this to the back of my hinge. And I'm going to tell you now, I cut it a little bit too wide, but that's okay because I'll show you what I do when I go to take that off. So now I get my 3/8 inch score tape, and I'm going to go ahead and cover my hinges with my tape. So they are ready when I put my page for my pages. And when I do my tape, you can use even the 1/4 tape, but when I do mine, I want to make sure, you always want to make sure keep the tape as right even with your top of your hinge. You don't want it down at the bottom and none at the top. Because you want it to grab, you don't want the tape showing down here in your book once you add your paper. Okay, so that's all 5 of my hinges. Now I want to go in and okay, so in my book, I'm going to go ahead and peel cut my nails down, and I cannot function without my nails, so that's one of the reasons I'm using my scissors to pull everything off. Okay, see how I went over on that? I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, you can there. So all I do is I bring it back over. I'm not going to try to cut it off or anything. I just push it back over. And then the same at the top and at the bottom. I just bring it back, bring it over to the other side so that way it's none sticking out. Okay, so then you want to go ahead. Now I don't cover the inside of my hinge. Some people do with the designer paper. Some people do. I don't. And so I just go ahead and I can add my hinge now. And that making it that 1/4 inch larger allows me to get it right in the middle of that. Okay, there's our album. Now for the pages. And the pages are super easy as well. So we're going to set this aside until we get our pages done. I think. I can find a place to stick it. I'll stick it down there. Go ahead and put my score tape away because I'm not going to be using that anymore from, as I don't need it for my pages. So the pages are 8 by 6. So you are going to need to cut 5 pieces of cardstock 9 by 12. Okay, so you want to cut it, keep the 12, and then cut your 12 by 12 by 9 and 12. All right, and then on that you want to score at 6 inches right down the middle. You want to turn it, and you want to score it 8.5, and you want to score it 1/2. Okay. All right. And then you want to take, and on the score line, the 6-inch score line, you're going to notch it up to the score line, okay? The same on both sides.